If you're an attorney that struggles with getting home in time for dinner, or taking a vacation without your cell phone and your laptop attached to your hip, or maybe you just can't figure out why you don't make more money based on your education level and the service that you give to your clients. Maybe you're an attorney who wonders, why can't my law firm operate without my constant presence? Or finally, maybe you're thinking to yourself, I wonder if I can ever retire from my firm. Maybe I'm going to have to work right to my dying day, like so many other attorneys before me have done. Well, hi, my name is Richard James, and I created EA Nation so that you could learn how to build a law firm that supports your lifestyle as compared to undermining your lifestyle. EA Nation stands for Entrepreneurial Attorney Nation, and we join together, whether they're like-minded entrepreneurial attorneys, to unpack the secrets to how to do just that. And I want to help you build your law firm better, one system at a time. So without further ado, let's get started with this next episode. So without further ado, today we're going to be talking about one of the oil wells that you need to be building. So today at EA Nation, really this idea of one of the things that you need to make sure that you have as the owner of a small law firm is or are at least 2, if not 3, good quality oil wells. The worst number in business is 1. And when you're developing, what I mean by an oil well is a system or a marketing system or advertising system that generates leads to your firm with regularity. And in the ideal system is you can throttle the leads up or you can throttle the leads back. And the system we're about to talk about is, once it gets rolling, it just kind of sort of works. And what we're going to talk about today is this idea dead? Is this system something that doesn't work any longer? Because a lot of people believe that to be true. And I don't believe that to be true. And I think our in-house expert's going to tell you today the same thing. So today we're going to be talking about SEO. So SEO is creating an online oil well, primarily driving traffic to your online website, and then converting traffic from your website to become a lead inside of your firm. And so they're oftentimes the best leads from your organic SEO because they came right from search, or they came from a referral that somebody said to look you up. And you want to make sure that you're able to be found. And I think there's some truths and some myths that you need to know about. So I've invited a good friend and our in-house SEO expert, Darin. Darin, are you with us? Can you?
I am. Yep.
Okay, cool. Darin Swayne is with us. We've spotlighted him. He's from Advantage Attorney. Darin, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself and about your company, your background, what makes you an expert in this field?
My name is Darin Swayne. I've been doing digital marketing since the 90s. I grew up in a family of attorneys. I know personally the struggles that small law firms go through. Saw it with my dad, saw it with my grandfather. I know how challenging it really can be for attorneys. And that was back in the day before you could do any real marketing, So now there's all sorts of different options for you. I went to business school, earned my MBA, spent a little time in law school, and my dad talked me out of becoming an attorney. So I ended up putting my skills to work in marketing instead, and specifically digital marketing. So we've built up the agency. We started in a law firm, mainly it did bankruptcy type stuff and bankruptcy, family law, that kind of thing. Pretty soon we had other firms asking us what we were doing. And next thing I knew it, I was doing marketing for a living. So that's kind of how we got started.
It's funny how that works, right?
It is.
Success breeds success. So
right.
yeah, that's great. So, okay. So you've got real life experience, boots on the ground of what a law firm needs. And you've witnessed all the changes, right? So the SEO changes of the old wild west when it first got started, and everybody gaming the systems to make it work, to now everybody's still trying to figure out how to game the systems, but Google making it infinitely harder and there's more competition out there. Is that a fair statement?
That's very fair. Yeah, it's definitely harder to game the system now. It's still possible to some degree, but every time somebody figures out how to beat the system, Google figures out how to beat them. So it's really just best to stick with best practices and do the right things.
Yeah, and so as I know we're going to get into the details of this, but as an overriding general theme, if you were to stick to best practices with SEO, even if you're starting from scratch, is it fair to say that over time we would gain traction and gain positioning in the marketplace so that we'll start to get a share of that traffic and leads coming our way?
Yes, if you do the right things, it's really a matter of math. It's a science, and if you do the right things, 1 + 1 = 2 every time, and you can build, a really big um, following or traffic on the internet just by doing the right things. It does take time. It doesn't happen overnight. Just like starting your practice or a referral business or something. It just takes time.
Yeah, this is the opposite of pay-per-click.
Opposite,
um,
basically.
but it's more robust. One of the things I hear a lot of people say, I'll talk to them about, they'll come to me with their challenges with their website, and I'll talk to them about, well, what is your investment and with your current company, and they'll tell me a number, and I'll say, well, so what are they doing for you? And they'll tell me that, really the company is managing their SEO, but they put an awful lot of emphasis on Google pay-per-click. And it seems like a number of the vendors that are out there in and outside of the legal field for online marketing have somewhat abandoned the traditions of SEO for the speed and the results of pay-per-click. Do you think that's a fair statement?
That is a fair statement. It's also cheaper and easier for them to do, and it requires less technical skill. So, especially now, pay-per-click is getting more and more automated, and you're having fewer choices and decisions to make and less optimizations to do with pay-per-click. And so it's just easier to do. They can hire a college kid, high school kid, whatever, to do pay-per-click and manage your campaigns, and it's okay. It'll turn out all right. SEO is not like that, but the difference is SEO will last for months or years. Once you get established, it just keeps rolling. And pay-per-click, as soon as you stop pay-per-click, it's done. It's over.
Yeah, so that's the interesting thing, with SEO, the negative is it takes a while to get it rocking and rolling, but the positive is that once you get it rocking and rolling, it stays rocking and rolling, right?
That's right.
So it just keeps on going. I mean, it takes an awful lot to kill a really well-built website and actually have it disappear. It's usually not the case. So let's break into it. I want to go into the nitty-gritty because I really want to let people understand a little bit more about the truth behind this. Why don't you go ahead and share your screen? While you're doing that, for everybody on the call, if you're just showing up, we are on talking about building this oil well we call SEO, which is a version of digital or online marketing. And remember, when we talk about things, we're talking about from a marketing perspective. Around here at EA Nation, we believe that message, media, market, match, right? So it's the marketing triangle. We want the right market, meaning we want the right traffic coming in. We want them to see the right message, and we want it done using the appropriate media. And when you get that right and you match that triangle up, you're going to get the right lead coming in the door, more qualified lead, which will allow you to convert better through the perfect client life cycle of setting an appointment, getting them the show, getting them to retain the firm at the highest possible dollar amount, and getting them to pay in full, which is our obvious best nirvana-like situation. So when we start talking about SEO, what we really want to talk about is this idea that where do we start? So Google My Business. Now that brings me to a great point, everybody. Some of you are going to say, well, Rich, you don't seem to understand, Darin just said bankruptcy and or family law, but I only do high level sex offenders, so I don't think this is going to work for me. Or I do mainly business with business to business cannabis stores. And so this is a little different for me. Or, I do landlord tenant law. And I've got, this is just not going to make sense for my business. I think it's really important to come at this with a can-do mindset. SEO works for just about even us. Like, Darin can tell you, I don't know, Darin, maybe like our traffic has gone from wherever it was to a multiple of that in the last couple of years since you guys have been managing our SEO. I want to say it's almost a 400% increase in unique traffic that we're visiting to our site. And, we sell to attorneys, right? So our market is business to business lawyers. And lawyers, to be honest with you, don't do an awful lot of searching online. There's an awful lot of searching online done for lawyers, but lawyers themselves don't do a lot of searching online for the categories that we want to master in. And so to be able to make that happen just goes to show you that my business isn't different from yours. So you don't have to answer me, Darin. You don't have to say it with me. Just follow along. Counselor, raise your right hand. Your mics are off, but I know you believe in me, and I want to believe in you. If you're new around here, I'm not crazy. I'm not going to ask you to drink any Kool-Aid, but raise your right hand. Repeat after me. My business is not different from yours. Okay. So that's the oath we're taking. We're going to come from this position of how can we make this work for your business? Don't blank out on me when you hear something that you think your vendor that you're currently using is telling you isn't true. I'm telling you what we're about to tell you is the truth. So Darin, talking about Google My Business, let's tell everybody what Google My Business is, maybe even tell them what it used to be so we can get clarity on that.
Sure. It's gone through many iterations. And years ago, it started as, I think it was Google Live, and then it went to Google Plus, and it was Google Plus. Basically, what they were trying to do at one point, Google was trying to do at one point, was to create kind of a social media platform for themselves. It didn't work. It failed miserably. So they shifted into just focusing on businesses and listings and getting found. And because they control basically 95% of the search market, they came up with the 3-pack. Which is the local 3-pack. It shows up in the listings. That's all part of Google My Business. And they also control about 90% of the map searches. So it's also integrated with Google Maps, Google Places, and all that kind of stuff. And it all stems off from your Google My Business listing.
Yeah. So it's this, right? So, you might be able to see it. Nope, not gonna see it.
No, not enough contrast.
All right. Anyway, if you were looking at my phone, you type in bankruptcy attorney near me. By the way, Rashad Blossom and offices of Jack Lesman, you're like 1, 2, and 1 or 3, right? So you're in the 3-pack. You're literally on the first page of Google. You're both client members of ours. I don't know if they're clients of Darin or not. If they are, it's a good shout out. But I didn't know that was going to happen. I just Googled it, figured I'd see what came up. But that's what we're talking about here, right? We're talking about the ability when people Google from their mobile phone, which happens, I don't know, 80+% of the time, they can now see your firm pop up first. And it has just a tremendous amount of credibility. And assuming it has the right reviews and it looks credible, they'll click the button to call, and they'll just pick up your office, pick up the phone and call you, or they'll go to your website that's linked to Google My Business, and they'll become a lead. So let's talk about how this works, Darin. Why don't you walk us through it?
Okay. Well, essentially what you're going to do is, it's not advancing here. There we go. So there's 4 basic steps to setting up your GMB listing. It goes well beyond just adding your name, phone number, address into the Google My Business setup. So that's kind of step 1. Optimize your Google My Business profile. Build your Google My Business profile. Step 2 is you have to build local listings, and the local listings are what gives your GMB profile authority. That's what's going to push it up in Google's eyes and make Google recognize that as you as an authority in Google My Business and also for your website. You need to create social profiles, because that is, again, another way to tell Google who you are, where you are, what you do, and that you're an authority in that area. And then finally, you need to make sure that your website is optimized uh, for local search. It goes well beyond just optimizing for keywords anymore. You have to make sure that it's optimized for local search.
Yeah. So to pause right there. So optimizing GMB profile, most people can get that done. Some people ask me, and by the way, folks, if you've got questions, go ahead and type it into the question in the chat. You can do that anywhere along the way. We'll deal with any major questions that we have that we didn't address at the end. But if you have a question regarding this, please ask. But some people oftentimes ask me, well, Darin, when I'm setting up, or sorry, Rich, when I'm setting up the GMB profile, is it important to get, the video done or the images done by a Google certified photographer or videographer? Is that important anymore, you think?
No, it's not. Google has made it so that the regular person can set this up fairly easily. In fact, the way that the GMB profiles work is it's a public profile, so anybody can go in there and suggest edits to your profile. Any customer that you have can add pictures to your profile. So that's one reason why you need to monitor your profile as well, because if you don't respond to those changes, then those changes can be adopted and put into your profile when you don't want them to. So your competitors, an unscrupulous one, could in theory go in there and mark your business as moved or closed. And if you don't respond to that, then that can cause you a problem. But yeah, it's really
I was at a restaurant once. I was going to a restaurant once, and it was marked that it was closed, and I called them because I didn't think they were, and they weren't closed. And I go, man, that's weird. Your thing says you're closed. He goes, oh, yep, that's competition. I go, what? I didn't know what they were talking about. Like, you can suggest and edit that their hours should change, and if they don't respond to it, Google will actually change your hours to reflect the change.
That's right. Yeah.
So you think competitors would do that? And all attorneys are of the highest level of integrity, right? They never do that kind of thing. For those of you who haven't heard this story, it's worth telling. Google My Business was called back in the day Google Maps or Google Local. And as Darin was talking about, and when I built the firm in Phoenix, if the old firm that the partnership broke up from, and the firm that I had created with this attorney, they somehow Google had linked our profile and their profile in the back. And if I went in and made a change, it showed our phone number. If he went in and made a change, it showed his phone number. And both of us had figured this out. And Google, in the early days, Google was bringing us $12,000 to $15,000 in gross sales every single month through just Google My Business alone. And like, I would literally get up, set my alarm at 2:00 in the morning to go in and change the phone number. And then I would get up in the morning at 7:00 and I would see that they had gotten up before me and changed it back. And then I would go and change it again. And until finally, Google, after months of begging Google to just straighten this out, they unlinked the account. So we both had our own listing. But yeah, your competitors are watching. They do know what's going on. And if they understood how to game the system, I don't want to suggest that they would, but I'm suggesting that they might. So you got to pay attention. That next one, this create the local listings. That's not like, is that something everybody can do on their own? Or you really need to have some help with that, right?
Well, you could theoretically do it on your own, but it's not really practical. We have a department of 4 guys that's all they do is create local listings all day long.
And this is like citations. That's the other word for it.
Citations, right? Directories, local listings. It goes by a lot of names, but it's all the same. It's all the same thing.
And the truth about this is, like, you really need to have this right. I mean, like, if it's street, it can't be STREET. It needs to be ST period. Like, it has to match whatever is on your site, correct?
You're getting in one of the myths now. Rich.
Okay, got it. So, okay, good. So let's not touch that. Let's put that in the parking
Okay.
lot. Let's come back to that later. Okay, great. So social profiles, even if you're not a Facebooker, you still got to have it because Google wants to see it. And on-page optimization, making sure your website is done correctly, that needs to be done by an expert. Let me let you keep going because I don't want to break into the myths on you.
Okay. All right. So when it comes to optimizing your GMB profile, step one, and most people don't have a problem with this, but it does happen. Check for duplicate profiles. You make sure that you haven't, sometimes one time that this happens a lot is when you move. It's a big mistake when you move locations to create another listing for it. If you create another listing for the new location, you lose all your reviews, all of your citations, all of that stuff. It's gone, and there's no way to move that to the new listing. So the way that we fix that is by merging or deleting the other location and then changing the address on the first location, on the original location.
Nice.
So it is something that you do want to check for, especially if you're moving. You want to ensure that your profile is complete. Some of this stuff is pretty basic, making sure the name's in there, address, phone number, your tracking, it should be a tracking phone number in there, but also your original phone number. So the actual phone number for the location should be set as a secondary number and your tracking number as a primary number. And as long as you have both the numbers in there, or any number that you've gone by in the past in there, then you don't create what's called a NAP issue with Google. And we'll get into that because that's another kind of myth thing later
Got
on.
it. Okay, good.
Yeah. Make sure your website URL's in there with a tracking code on it, a UTM code. Make sure your services are fully set up, because again, if you don't tell Google on that listing what your services are, and by that I don't mean I practice law. I mean I do wills. I create wills. I create trusts. I create advanced healthcare directives. You really need to break it down into those minute kind of sub practice areas.
So if they have
things that you
multiple
do.
practice areas, right? Can they use one GMB account and have multiple practice areas so that, if they're a big enough firm and they've got enough reviews or whatever, that they can actually GMB rank in the top 3. Let's say they're a family law firm and a criminal firm, and they want, to make sure that somebody Googles criminal firm in Phoenix or family law in Phoenix, that their firm shows up in the 3-pack, and they still use the same primary listing and just list their categories here?
Well, services and categories are two different things, but you do want to do you do want to do both. You want to make sure that you've listed your categories and all the relevant categories that go with it. A mistake is, say, if you're, maybe you have 3 or 4 different practice areas that you do, and you only put law firm in there as your only category. Well, then that's the only category you're going to show up for. And somebody searching for estate planning attorneys, you may not show up there because you haven't indicated that that's one of the categories that you have. So you need both categories and you need services set up. So you need to delineate them in both locations. And I have a complete list of categories. Anybody that's interested in that can just reach out to me, and I'll send you a list of categories and what you should use for your particular practice areas.
Charles had a question. He said, hey, I made a GMB account for each of his offices because he has multiple locations. So not only multiple practice areas, but multiple locations, and he made one for each of them. Is that the preferred method? And he did it because he wanted to get Google Maps at each location, or could you have accomplished that same goal with putting multiple addresses in one GMB account?
No, because it's Google's getting more and more localized, even with organic search. So you want to have, for each physical location that you have, you want to set up a separate GMB location for it, for sure.
Okay, cool,
Yeah.
great. You did the right thing, Charles. Nice.
Yep. Way to go,
All
Charles.
right, next.
Okay, so a couple little tricks here. Business hours. If you're answering your phones 24/7, You know, if you have Lex, or if you're using our service, most people don't know we have a service like that, but we do. Had to pitch it. So it's 24/7 answering. You know, you want to indicate that in Google that you're open 24 hours. The reason for that is that you get preferential treatment after hours in the GMB listing if you're open. So, you know, because they want to send you to a business that's open, right, in the searches. So if you close at 5 and it's now 8 o'clock at
Interesting.
night and you're not 24 hours, but you have 3 other people who are 24 hours, they may actually outrank you at night.
Hmm.
So even if you're number one during the day. So that's something in there to consider. Making sure that you have your logos uploaded and your other images. And when you do your images, you don't need to have a professional photographer do these images. Take them on your iPhone, your Android, whatever it is. Just make sure that you have the geolocation turned on when you're taking your pictures. Um, what it does is it embeds in their metadata with the exact coordinates of the location, and Google will actually index those coordinates in the metadata, and that helps you build relevance in your local searches. So that's a little trick in there.
Great tip.
Yeah, appropriate tags and categories and stuff like that, those are also things that you should make sure that you list all your categories out. And service areas. This is a big mistake that a lot of people make because they don't really understand how the service area works in GMB. Service areas are for businesses that do not have a walk-in business where they're coming to you, say plumbers, electricians, stuff like that, where they're delivering the service to you. That's what the service area is for. You want to
So
say,
unless you have that limited service area, Jimmy John's, and you can't get a sandwich delivered because you live a quarter mile outside of their circle. That's
right,
me, by the way.
right.
Can't get a Jimmy John's
Me
sandwich.
too, and it really irritates me.
Yeah, well, probably better for my waistline. But anyway, I can't get a Jimmy John sandwich even when I want it. So if you remember the old Jimmy John commercial, they had a Jimmy John commercial that the Jimmy John delivery guy actually got there faster than the fireman, and he kept bringing buckets of water to help put out the fire before the fireman could get there. So if I've got a fire at my house, I'm better off calling 911 than I am calling Jimmy John's because they're outside of my service area. Anyway, the point is, they would identify that on Google. Whereas a law firm that's not appropriate. It's gonna hurt you rather than help you.
Right, it fences you in rather than opening it up to say, hey, wherever this may be relevant, show me. What it does is instead says this is the only areas you should show me in. And so it really accomplishes the opposite of what you want it to.
Nice, good.
Okay.
All right. Keep rocking and rolling. This is good. By the way, commercial break, just in case anybody's new to the call. We are, in this session, we're talking about building your oil well. And in this case, we're talking about digital marketing or online marketing through SEO. And we've just covered this Google My Business concept. And Darin's given away some great tips. Darin Swayne with Advantage Attorney. And they obviously can do this for you, but he's going through this so you understand what to do. And a couple of the members have already gotten tips that they're taking action on immediately because they weren't doing it that way.
Okay.
Get at least 10 5-star reviews.
Yeah, the reviews are it's not as big of a ranking factor as people think it is, but it is a ranking factor. And if your competitors have 50 reviews, then 10's not enough. Because if that's the only thing that's separating you from the number one spot, you know, that's holding you back. So you always need to be building up those reviews because your competitors are building reviews.
Yeah.
So you know, just get as many as you can, but try to start with at least 10.
Good. Yeah. So how many reviews should you have? One more than your competitor.
Right. You don't. You know. I don't have to outrun the bear. I only have to outrun you.
That's right. Exactly. Good. Okay. All right. So bonus section.
Bonus section. Okay. So these are not necessarily ranking factors, but it's how to get the most out of your GMB. GMB, you can post, you can create posts, micro posts is basically what they are, and
Mhm.
post them on there. These can be offers. You can be, say for a limited time, we're offering this at a certain price, or we're offering a certain service. It's a great place to advertise those things for free. You just create a little post. It's about 300 words, put it on there with an image, and people will see it and click on it. Um, it can be also syndicated content, and this is what we do for most of our clients is we take the content that we're creating on your website, and then we syndicate it out to your GMB accounts so that it gets seen by more eyes. So people that see that, they actually if they click on it, it takes them to your site. So it's another method of driving traffic back to your site. And of course, using local references does help with your local search results.
Mm.
And this is kind of one that when we get into the Google stack, it's really more complicated than what we can really cover here. But Google stack, Google loves itself. It's very narcissistic. So um, there's tons of Google properties, and they're all available publicly. So what that means is you can make them public facing or private. If you make them public facing and you have embedded URLs in there, then all those URLs are crawlable. And
Mm.
not only are they crawlable, but they're crawling from the highest domain authority that there is.
Mm.
So it's adding authority to your site by creating things like publicly available Google Sheets, Google Docs, with your URLs embedded in those docs. And as you know, if they're, as long as you're searchable, they're going to get found, they get crawled, they get indexed, and that helps you with your SEO for your site and for your GMB listing as well.
Suffice it to say, there's a lot that goes into managing GMB correctly. And Google, if there's one thing consistent about Google, it's its inconsistency, or it's a desire to change. And so, if you're going to do this right, not only does it have to be set up correctly, but then it has to be maintained on an ongoing basis, right?
Right.
So,
It's really not a set it and forget it kind of thing. You
yeah.
have to keep working it, because your 70 to 80% of your business, certainly of your calls, are going to come from your GMB listing.
Mhm.
And your competitors want that business too. And so they're constantly out there trying to one up you on this. And
Mhm.
so GMB is not something you want to rest on your laurels with. Just because you're number one today doesn't mean you're going to be number one tomorrow.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree. I count it as the, so when somebody say, what should I do online? I say first master GMB, then maybe we can look at pay-per-click and SEO, but like, I want you to get GMB right first, because it is such a valuable asset if you get it done right. This is the new yellow pages. There are no yellow pages. Well, there are yellow pages, but like, this is the new yellow pages, right? So Zoe asked, is it possible, I don't know if we have time to go into the specific of, and maybe she can talk to you offline, but is it possible to delete old photos attached to the Google listing?
Yeah, you can go in and manage those photos, but the thing with Google is once it's out there, it's really tough to get rid of. So the easier way to do that, if you go in there, you try to delete it, and you find that they keep showing up, then the way you get rid of them is you bury them. So you
You just add
simply
a bunch more photos and bury
bunch
them.
more so that nobody sees them. That's
Yeah.
usually, and that's same with bad reviews too. You can never really get rid of them, but if you got a bad review, you just bury them with good reviews, and then it just doesn't matter anymore.
Good. Anne was asking, if you share your address, this might come under the myths. If I'm in an address with a multiple other businesses or other firms even, will I get dinged?
No.
And no. Okay.
No, you can have multiple businesses run out of the same address. In fact, our main offices probably has 6 or 7 different businesses in there. Uh, 3 of which I own, and 3 of which the law firm owns. and it's you know, there's
You all stand on your own on GMB.
we're all stand on it. We all stand on our own. As long as it's legitimately a separate entity, then you can share addresses. It needs to have a separate phone number, that kind of thing, but separate site. That but as long as it's got those things, then it's not a problem.
Got it. Got it. Good. All right, let's keep going.
Okay, so the next thing, create local listings. We already talked about this: listings, citations, directories. They're all the same. You want to complete
Let's check through the list here, because I want to get to your myths. You got about 20 minutes left, and we've covered this a little bit. At the end of the day, if you're going to do this, obviously you need to do all of these steps. But here's the reality, Darin. Most firms aren't going to do this on their own. I know firms who are very, very, very good at really love SEO. And I know firms who have invested $500,000 a year in managing their own SEO. And this was just too much for them to do, because it's just tedious, and it happens. It's always changing. It needs constant attention. And I've had firms say they get it wrong, and it's not what you do. This is one of those things you don't want to do on your own. You want to have somebody else do for you. So create local listings or citations. Yeah, he's giving you the step-by-step. Check the listing date, complete the profile, include your unique description, start with the high-value citations. Don't forget the data aggregators, blah, blah, blah. Here's my advice. Don't do it. Don't try to do it.
It's not worth it. It's not worth it.
Not worth it.
You cannot build the same number of citations that we build for you. The average client for us gets 30 to 50,000 citations per year. The amount of labor that you would spend building that many citations is just it would just be prohibitive. It's cheaper to pay me to do it.
No, it is. I completely, absolutely promise you, I don't care how you try to figure out how to do this on your own, you will not do it as cost effective as having another firm do it for you. And the thing is, if you want your GMB to rank, getting citations built properly with the right proper companies and using a proper system for it and keeping up with all the changes that happen is likely one of the most important things you will do to let Google know that you are a local business and have them rank you. Is that a fair statement?
That's very fair. Yeah.
Yeah. So look, all this other stuff about Google My Business is great, but you should absolutely be having somebody do this for you who is giving you, evidence by your ranking, if nothing else, that they're actually doing the labor. Because unfortunately, I know some companies who say they manage it, and then when you ask them about citation building, they really can't answer their questions. And then they wonder why their Google My Business isn't really ranking. The secret is in the citations. I mean, not the secret, but one of the hardworking labor forces is in the citations. And there's no other way to do it than manual, good old fashioned work and systemization. So don't even try to do it on your own. Let's keep going with the myths. They just need to hire a firm to do that for them. Okay. So what about these social media profiles?
Social media profiles, it's kind of the same. Build your social media profiles, make sure they're accurate, make sure they link back to your site. You'd be surprised how many of them don't have a link back to your website. And then you want to syndicate content to it whenever possible. So here's a secret. Everybody says, I hate doing social media. It's not worth it. And I'm not going to disagree with that. Doing social media, doing just branded posts and things like that, waste of time, waste of money. Don't do it. But what is good is building authority and getting links out there and getting stuff that people may click on. So syndicate out your own content, and it costs you nothing to syndicate.
Yeah. And so that's what's really interesting. They're like, oh, I don't want to be on TikTok. Well, you probably shouldn't be on TikTok. But
I certainly should not be on TikTok.
But your firm should absolutely have a listing on TikTok and should have content being driven to it so that it gets links back. So this is how Google understands you're real, right?
Right.
And so Google's not a human being. It only can see what you show it. And so you've got, and look, I mean, look, who knew there was a social media site called Soup, right? I mean, seriously, I didn't. Maybe people do. I don't know. But like, I didn't. So like, my point is there's all these social media sites you don't know about. And oh, by the way, more are created all the time. And every one of them requires you to make sure you have a feed, or a listing or a profile. Every one of them wants to make sure you have your website link, the proper link back to the page on the site that you want it to have. Everybody needs to make sure you're posting syndicated content where it's feasible to these sites, and drawing traffic and putting all this stuff in front of more eyes, because that's what Google believes is real. This is the virtual world that Google lives in. They don't judge you by who you are as a person. They judge you by who you are
digitally
as a link, as a social, right? That's the reality. I mean, it's sad, but it's true.
Right. And so, yeah, and just getting out there, it's just casting a wider net too. You never know who's going to get in there. And if you can syndicate to these platforms for free, without any effort, it's all automated. Why not do it?
Correct.
Yeah. So, okay.
Good.
Okay, so the on-page optimizations, this gets a lot more technical, Rich, and I don't know if we really want to dive into this, but
Well, just talk about the bonuses.
okay, so let's go in the bonuses. So
because all the other stuff is like literally, so just so you got your landing page for each location, your GMB landing page for multiple locations, make sure your keywords are in there, variations of keywords and locations to make sure you're breaking up and it's not just the same bullet list of services with links to content, location with keywords and image, alt tags, embedded YouTube videos, Google Maps, phone numbers, address. So like, it's not as technical as it is, but man, that's a lot of work. And it's a lot of work to make sure it's there and it's working and it's refreshed and all that stuff. But in the bonus, I love these bonus ideas that you've got. Include driving directions from 2 or 3 routes. Talk about that.
Yeah, well, again, this is all about building relevance. That's what's on page is all about. So by having those directions in there, building the relevance there, Google sees that, Google likes it. It's relevant, and it's creating a better user experience, which is another thing that Google has really getting into lately. So including those driving directions is important. And now linking out to, like, say, local attractions, this is how you build relevance. And again, you can link to some scenic route that's out there. While you're here, go and see the historic courthouse that's next door. Whatever it is, those are the kinds of things that you can link to that really can build relevancy, and help improve the user experience. And then you want to link out to your authority sites, the sites that set you up as an authority. So you're going to link out to your Avvo profile, your Better Business profile. It really could be, it could be anything here, but you want to link out to stuff that sets you up as a profile, or as a authority, and that has that makes you look good. So if your Avvo score is a 6.2, probably don't want to link to that one. But if your Avvo score is a 10, then that's a good one to link to.
Good. So we got some questions about this. How do you go about doing those links? I would say, let me put that in the parking lot. I don't know that we have too much time to go into the how to make the links to other attractions. I hate to be crass, but 1, you can schedule a call with Darin and he'll probably tell you how to do it. 2, you could Google it. Sorry, that was an unfair joke. But there was a question about, what do you mean about link Google Sheets to GMB? I didn't see that in here.
That was in the Google Stack.
Okay, so you can literally link your Google Sheets to your GMB page?
Well, yeah, what you actually do is there's a couple different ways to do it. And a lot of people don't know this, but you can embed things in Google Sheets and most of the Google properties. So you can embed your map there. You can take the link. There's the link that displays in that address bar, right? So you can take that link that displays in your address bar of your GMB, your public facing GMB profile, and you can put that into a Google Sheet. And the way that adds value is if it has, say, you know, a list of all of your locations in there,
Mhm.
or maybe it's in there with a list of other addresses or something that would add value to the user. And so when Google sees that, maybe it's in there with a list of courthouses and stuff like that.
So the point is, this one particular thing isn't going to make all the difference in the world when
No.
it comes to the stack. This is you know, it's getting more and more competitive. So there's these free properties that Google has that you can go out and use, and you can cross embed links, and Google sees all that stuff, and they know when you're utilizing them. And so it's not I don't know, the quality of high value isn't as high as it, but it's when you're in a competitive market, you need to do everything you possibly can to make sure you're linking back and forth between your Google GMB listing and your other free Google properties like Sheets or Docs or whatever. And it's literally a sheet or a doc that's sitting there that has a link from one to the other. And Google sees that, you know, it sees these two things together. Google sees everything, right?
Right.
So they're fully omnipresent and transparent with what's happening on the internet. So let's keep going.
Oh yeah, anybody that wants information on that, you can email me or just give me a call. I'll send you out the full instructions. We have a whole SOP on it that'll tell you step by step how to do
Oh,
it.
nice. What's your email address so I can make sure they have it?
It's D Swayne, and it's the longest URL ever. So it's DSWAYNE at advantageattorneymarketing.com.
Couldn't find a longer one, so you went with that, huh?
Yeah, that was the longest one we could fit on the business card.
Nice, good.
Yeah.
All right, keep rocking and rolling. We got about 10 minutes left, 12 minutes left.
All right, well, let's get through the SEO myths then. So, okay, so this
is the one I was thinking about. So this is a myth, huh?
Yeah, so it's kind of a myth. It's greatly exaggerated. It's perpetuated mostly by people who were trying to sell you something. This is why you always have to be careful of people who are selling you something, because they are in it for themselves. See, like Yext and Yodel and Bright Local, and there's a million different services that do this kind of stuff. They list this stuff. But if you look at the individual things, the things that they say that are important, there's another one, sign up, and a couple other big ones, but they all have different ones that they say these are the most important citations. Well, if they were the most important, wouldn't they be the same in each one of these services?
Right.
And they're not. And you know, some of them have 100 of them, some of them have 50 of them, some of them have
they all have their opinion on what's the most important.
Right, and it's all just a sales technique. And so it's really not true. As far as the everything matching goes, that is something they do with the NAP, and they say, oh, your NAP doesn't match, which is the name, address, phone number, and Google doesn't really care. What Google looks at is, are all your phone numbers that you're using listed in your GMB profile?
Oh, interesting.
So as long as Google can see them there, now these services only see the primary phone number, right? So the primary phone number, if that's listed, but that's different than what you have in your citation, because you created the citation years ago when you had your firm's phone number in there, then that number, you know, that would show up as a NAP error in their system, but it's not truly a NAP error. So a lot of this stuff is exaggerated. It's really just meant to sell you something. Even the fact that when they say that they can suppress duplicates, well, they're not getting rid of the duplicates. The duplicates are still there. They're just suppressing it in their system, so you don't see the duplicates.
They suppressed it.
Yeah, they suppressed it. It's not there anymore.
They didn't lie. They suppressed it. They just suppressed it in their system.
Exactly. So
that's great.
So that is now, you don't want to be crazy. If you moved, you want to get these things updated. Some of them can't be updated. You know, some of them once you create the listing, you can't, there's nothing you can do about it. You can't go in and edit it. With all the hundreds and thousands of directories out there, it just becomes impossible.
Yeah.
So you have to create new listings and do some other stuff. But again, this is not something for the faint of heart. It's not something the average person should be tackling on their own, but it's not something that you should just turn over to Yext and think you're good.
Yep.
Because Yext only has a limited influence. All those services only have limited influence. This stuff should be done manually and methodically and grown over time.
Good. All right, next. I need
Okay.
long-form content, 2,000 words or more. Yeah, that's what's being told out there right now. That's for sure.
Absolutely not true.
Yeah.
Oops. Didn't want to do that. Let's go back. Okay. So this is actually stems from a couple different surveys of people, services that were Googling different things, and they said, well, this all these top ranking ones always have 10,000 words or more, or 2,000 words or more. Well, again, this is one of those things where, depending on which survey you read, there's a different word count.
Got it.
It's not done using a scientific method. It's just done by basically searching and surveying. John Mueller, who is the head of search at Google, says length of content is not a ranking factor. And that's why I put in there, Google something like black wool socks and see what comes up first. You're not going to get a 10,000 word document on the top listing for black wool socks. You're going to get, it's a black wool sock, and there might be 100, 200 words on the entire page for the #1 ranking. It's just not a ranking factor. That is a complete myth. But what is required is that you have that you adequately cover the subject matter. So that's really the most important thing there.
Got it. So how long should it be? As long as it needs to be to cover the subject.
As long as it needs to be to cover the subject matter. And again, I'm outrunning you, not the bear. So you have to look at your competitors and you have to see what they're putting on their page and make sure that you've included all the content that they have and a little bit more.
Got it.
Okay.
It will never end.
It never ends.
Number 3, keywords matter more than anything.
Well, keywords are important, but they're not the most important. So keywords, you got to have them. But really what Google's gotten into now and is going more and more in this direction is just natural language searches. So what do people search for? How do I create a will? How do I file bankruptcy?
Right.
Those are natural language.
Do I
searches.
qualify for a Chapter 7? Can my wife take my kids? How long will I go to jail for a DUI? Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Those are the things that Google likes, and that's.
By the way, I didn't know how to Google all those things because I have Googled all those things. I'm just saying that would be logical.
Sure, Rich. Okay. Okay. So, generally you're going to go with longer form, longer tail words now, rather than just simple keyword stuff. Okay.
Got it. Good. All right. Myth number 4, get penalized for duplicate content. So you have the same content that somebody else has on the other side of the country because there's only so many ways to tell the story about Chapter 7 bankruptcy.
Right. Okay. If it's exactly the same content, then what's going to happen is if basically the first person to rank is going to be the person who always ranks for that content, for the exact same content. So if you copy somebody else's page, you don't get penalized, you don't get delisted. What happens is you just don't rank for it because Google doesn't want to have multiple things ranking for exactly the same content. But similar content is not duplicate content. So it can be 70, even 80% similar to it. It can have the same kinds of things in there because you're right. There's only so many things you can say, so many ways you can say Chapter 7 bankruptcy.
I'm assuming though you have software or something that you can go in and identify on people's sites how much of their site is duplicate content and needs to be changed.
Yes, but you have to be careful with that stuff too, because that is another sales technique. People will say, hey, you've got all this duplicate content on your site, and it's not actually duplicate content. It's
so you can actually figure that out.
Yeah. There's all sorts of different services out there. You can use Copyscape. Copyscape has a service that you can actually crawl everybody else's sites with, and you can see what's duplicate to your content, and
Mm.
you can do all sorts of things like that. But again, when you're talking about legal concepts, most of them are going to be very similar. They're going to have similar ideas.
Mhm.
Especially if it's in the same state, they're going to have similar citations and different things like that. So it's really hard not for it to be at least somewhat duplicate to
Yeah.
everybody else's content.
Which is why we want it to be conversational if we can, as well as having the right mix of keywords. So having a good writer who understands how to write according to Google's current wills and whims and desires is important.
Right. Marketing is all about speaking to somebody.
Yeah.
Or speaking with somebody, not to somebody. So
Right. Speaking with somebody. So being on the same page as them. Okay, great. Next.
Okay, search volume from services like SEMrush and Ahrefs is accurate. Really, it's not. It's really only accurate for Google Ads. The reason is Google does not release any search data for organic search. So the example I put in here is, search for estate planning attorney in North Carolina, and then check that in SEMrush. What's the search volume for it? 0. Well, certainly somebody is searching for estate planning attorney in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Right.
But it's going to show 0 because Google doesn't track it. It's not one of the things that it thinks is important enough to maintain data on.
No kidding.
Yeah. So it's not accurate. It's at best, and it's good for AdWords because it'll show you what's actually going on with AdWords. Like if I did it and the search volume for estate planning attorney in Charlotte, North Carolina came up 0, I might think twice before doing PPC for estate planning.
Right.
But I'm not going to think twice about doing it organically
Mm-hmm.
because organically people are searching for that term.
Right.
And
Yeah. By the way, there's literally only one ad. So everybody else seems to have figured that out. There's only one ad.
That poor schmuck that's out there spending thousands of dollars on his G&B and getting nothing out of it. So
I would click on it, but I don't want to cost them $20. So I'm curious who it is, but I'm not going to click on it. All right, that's good. So as you're looking at these different reporting features, I just identify what keywords are. You got to understand what the purpose is and what Google's view it is on it. I get it. That's really great information.
Yeah.
I love that we're doing this because this stuff does change. We really should have this conversation every year, Darin, because like these things change all the time. And so this has been great. Do you have another myth?
Let's see here. I think we went through all that stuff. Oh, one of the important things here is any data you do get from these services, the organic data is going to be at least 10 times whatever it says in there for
No, that's a good rule of thumb. So whatever you see for paid, you can assume it's about a 10-time multiple for organic.
About a 10-time multiple, yeah, for it. And certainly if they're looking at traffic on those reports, the traffic is not going to be anywhere near, because the traffic is just an estimation based on the number of clicks that those words get and where you rank for it. It's definitely not a hard, fast thing. So
got it. So this next myth is, again, the salespeople that are out there saying, "Hey, I just ran your website through SEMrush or Ahrefs, and you've got a bunch of stuff that's wrong with your site."
Right. These things are, first of all, in the hands of a novice, they're almost worthless. So they have to be configured. They have to be configured properly, and some people will actually intentionally manipulate these or not configure them properly just so that it makes it look worse when they're out there doing these sales pitches. One thing that happens with any CMS, but especially with WordPress, is you'll see all these duplicate content errors. So you get all this stuff and it says duplicate content all over the place. Your whole site is full of duplicate content. And that, then they send that out and they get everybody worked up about it because my score on the SEMrush thing was a 42. Why isn't it a 99 or 100, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the reason for that is category pages. So category pages, like let's say if you have 1,000 articles and 400 of those articles are in the same category, and that you only get four, or you only get 10 articles per page on a category page, right? So you're looking at roughly 400 category pages, or 40 category pages, sorry. And so all of those category pages will show up in these reports as duplicate content.
Mm.
But that it's just not. And it's, if it was properly configured, that would not show up. But
Got it.
that's just one of those little things that these salespeople do, and that's where this myth came from, and it's just wrong. So
Cool.
okay.
Okay, I know we got coming to the end. A couple people have to jump. We got one more myth here, another myth here. SEO is dead. I'm not going to put all my money into Google. Bottom line is SEO is 10 times the ROI of paid traffic. You can get more traffic, targeted traffic using SEO. You have more control over SEO. Paid traffic is getting more and more expensive and less effective, and the SEO is more important than ever. And I agree with you. And like I've invested a couple $100,000 in paid traffic, and we can't get it to work no matter what we do. But SEO does work, and so SEO has been around as long as the internet's been around, and it's going to stay around for as long as the internet's around. And I don't see the internet going anywhere anytime soon. And having SEO so that you can have a good, robust system of attracting searchers to your site, and having a partner who's going to ensure that you're always staying up to date with the rules of engagement for Google and other online digital marketing companies that require those rules to be followed, is vital. And so SEO is not dead. SEO is very much alive and is essential to ensure that you don't have to stay ahead of the bear. You just got to stay ahead of your competition. Is that a fair statement?
That is a fair statement.
Good. All right. How do you want people to reach out to you, Darin, if they want to learn more?
Okay, the easiest way to get me, if you're a current client, you already have my cell phone. I give my cell phone number to all of our current clients. If you're not a current client, you can get me just by going to our website, click the schedule a call button. That schedules it with me. We can do a Zoom, and we can see Charles leaving us there.
Yep. No, Zoe's got to jump. That's all right. Yeah.
That's right. So yeah, that's the easiest way to get me. I will always answer your questions. There's no charge for it, and I'm the world's worst salesman, so I'm not going to try to sell you anything. I'm just going to tell you the truth.
Yeah. I think the best part about who you are is that you just tell them how it is. The other thing I would tell you folks from a just a third party endorsement, yeah, I get it, Charles. Your workday is over. Anyway, the what happens here with Darin is he doesn't say yes to everybody. So he's careful with who he brings on as clients, and he monitors his capacity to make sure that he can serve every client well. So I appreciate that about him. Darin, I think this information was fantastic. I think it was necessary. If people are ignoring this in their practice, they're crazy. If they're being sold by some of the tricksters out there that are using some of the erroneous data to sell them into services that are just not going to be effective, that's a mistake. And if they're trying to do it on their own, they're just going to get their lunch handed to them. So I really think that they need to use an in-house expert, and I choose you. So I think they should use you too, but we'll let them decide that for today. I thank you for providing the information, coming on here and giving them what it is that they need to understand how to at least have an informed decision when they're figuring out how they're going to manage their online digital marketing through SEO and build that oil well. So thank you so much.
No problem. Thank you, Rich. I appreciate your time.
Yep, absolutely. I think it was a great call, man. Appreciate you. Everybody, if you're on the call listening to your podcast or YouTube, obviously you want to go ahead and like and whatever else you're supposed to do, subscribe and follow whatever medium that you're on. We'd love to be able to share more of these episodes with you and make sure that you know that they're out there. I'm Richard James, and I hope you enjoyed this session, helping you build your practice better, one, let's say, marketing oil well at a time.
I hope you enjoy today's episode. I hope you learned something about a system that you could put into your law firm so you can build that law firm that supports your lifestyle rather than undermines your lifestyle. I hope that you feel like you're part of our community we call Entrepreneurial Attorney Nation. If you'd like to learn more about what we do around here, the best way to get started is to go ahead and go to our website, therichardjames.com. That's therichardjames.com, and request a free copy of one of our books so that you can take the next step in learning how we can help you build your practice better, one system at a time.